Point Spread Weekly out now. Make sure you check it out. This week you can read Matt Human's mock draft. I've got my first mock draft. Humans has draft bets as well. Also designed for next week. Steve Makinen has the best way to handle season win totals in the National Football League and so much more. This is the best time to become a VSiN Plus subscriber. It is free. Yes, free. No money required. You won't have to decide what you want to do, pay or cancel until at least one of the major sports returns. Just go to vsin.com/subscribe to sign up. That is vsin.com/subscribe. I'm Jonathan Von Tobel. It's the Everything Guide to Sports Betting Golf today here on VSiN. Josh Appelbaum alongside as well. And we head out to the phone line where Wes Reynolds is nice enough to give us a couple of minutes. Wes, we appreciate some time. Glad to hear that you're doing well. So let's start with this because you, of course, are a guy, not only do you bet on the PGA Tour, there's a European Tour as well that you get involved with as well. So let me just start with this. As a golf handicapper, where do you start with handicapping? Like if somebody wants to become a handicapper in the world of golf, where would you recommend they start? Would it be specific golfers, learning courses? Where do you think the first step is here for golf handicappers who want to get going?
Yeah, JBT, what I think you want to do when you're looking at a field of golfers, obviously, is just monitoring the tour week to week, which has obviously been tough to do in light of recent events. Even though the PGA Tour made a target announcement today that they are going to resume the week of June 14th at the Colonial in Fort Worth. So usually, what you want to do is you kind of look at recent form, obviously, of we don't have that once we assume we started back in June. You want to look at how guys are playing, if they're showing some consistency, if they're making cuts, if they're getting top 10, top 5 finishes, if they're contending and on some Sunday leaderboards for these tournaments, because that at least shows you that their game is in good shape. Then you kind of commingle that with a little bit of course form, where you look at previous results of certain events. For instance, when I wrote that up for the Masters last week in Point Spread Weekly newsletter, I included how many top 5 each player has had at Augusta, how many top 10s, how many top 25, how many cuts they've made based on the amount of appearances. So that's something you want to look at, I think, first and foremost, before you kind of get into the nuts and bolts of the various stats. When you kind of read some previews or you look at a course and say, okay, what characteristics play well at this certain course? Well, this is a course where you've got to be accurate off the tee because the fairways are narrow. Or this is a course that favors longer hitters because it's a 7,600-yard or 7,700-yard track. So you want guys that have a little bit of distance. So that's when you look at stuff like greens and regulation, and then you get into the strokes gained stats, strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained approach, strokes gained tee to green, what have you. So, but the first thing I think you probably want to evaluate if you're new to golf betting, you really want to look at player form and whatnot, and then kind of look at the course form and the previous success a player may or may not have had on a given week.
Wes, it's so great to have you on. I think you're really the go-to guy we wanted to talk to today, really helping new bettors learn how to bet golf. My question to you is, okay, you have all your information. You feel like you have a good feel for the players and the course. Now, what type of bet types do you lean on? We were talking about outright winners, place bets, matchups, props, groupings. Is there a specific bet type that you specifically lean on, or maybe a new bettor should look toward more, just in terms of how you manage your bankroll, and what bet type do you target?
I'm more of a matchup guy, but for or a futures guy rather, but for newer bettors, I would probably recommend at least maybe starting with just some matchups, because that is a head-to-head one player against one player, because obviously to win that bet and to get in the habit of winning, you just have to beat one guy. It could be Brooks Koepka matched up, and usually it's going to be good players and elite players matched against elite players, and then middle guys matched against middle guys. So you may have Brooks Koepka against Justin Thomas or something like that. So then you just got to win that bet based on who finishes with the better score over 72 holes, or if one of the guys misses the cut, you could have this bet won on Friday. So I recommend starting with matchups first. Then you can get into the futures market where you get into the outright winner and whatnot. Now, for something like majors or bigger tournaments, more than just your boilerplate regular PGA Tour weekly events, more books are going to be more apt to offer top 5 props, top 10 props, top 20s, top 25, make or miss the cut props. So before you get into that, I say maybe starting out, just stick with the head-to-head matchups.
So Wes, and you tweet out every single time when you're betting on these from the futures board, right? When you're talking about outright winners and tournaments, you tweet out on all of them, and you have multiple golfers, and it's generally recommended in stuff like this, right? It's an index prop. You want to fire out a couple of more, but talk a little bit about how you manage your bankroll when you're betting on multiple golfers to win a tournament outright, because it's not uniform plays across the board, right? In terms of units for you.
No, it's not, and that's what I recommend that people do if you're going to bet more than one golfer, which more people that bet the futures market week to week will do. Let's say you're taking 5 guys, and let's make up some arbitrary amounts. Let's say you're betting a golfer at 15 to 1. Maybe you bet $100 there. So if you go double the odds at 30 to 1, maybe you bet half of that, $50. So you make the increments, and that's something that I like to do, make the increments fairly equal, where you spread your money around, because more often than not, you're not going to bet the same amount of money on a 100 to 1 shot as you are a 25 to 1 shot, because there's a reason why a guy is priced at 100 to 1 and why a guy is priced at 25 to 1. So yeah, you want to even, I recommend that people even out their increments a little bit. So the payout is virtually the same, but you have less at risk on a longer shot if you want to go that route.
And yeah, one last thing, Wes, for you. Is there anywhere you go to get your golf information that maybe you could direct new bettors, new listeners, in terms of getting just stats on golfers and metrics and data that you can lean on to figure out who the good golfers are, who the bad ones are, putting, driving, all that kind of stuff?
In terms of like actual stats, I mean, you could go to PGAtour.com. They're now doing strokes gained stats and kind of some of the more advanced stats that they've created over the last several years. So you can get just raw stats from there. And then there's a couple little guys that put some spreadsheets out. One is a guy named Mike Miller, who's based overseas at smartgolfbets.com. And he usually has like a little spreadsheet, a graphic of recent form and also course form for a given event. And then he has a little kind of a breakdown of characteristics of the course, what kind of greens, what type of fairway surfaces. So a lot of information there for sure.
Wes Reynolds, follow him on Twitter at Wes Reynolds1. Wes, good to hear from you, man. Glad that you're healthy. We'll talk soon, okay?
Good to be with you guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Wes.
You got it. All right. We wrap up here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, when we return.